On Ric Flair's To Be the Man podcast with Conrad Thompson, they had another Ask Nate Anything. And the topic came up for the Nature Boy, Ric Flair, about AEW. And AEW, clearly a number 2 promotion at this point, clearly losing some steam. You know, they're kind of chugging along a little bit. They're not as hot as they used to be. And there's a lot of things that could contribute to that. But the Nate was asked, how would you fix AEW? And his response was interesting to say the least. Check out this clip.
Tony hasn't changed a thing in 3 years. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can tell that it's still Tony booking for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, why not give it a shot, somebody else a shot? This is not knocking Tony. I'm just saying,
Right.
you know, he's on a private jet flying to the football. He doesn't miss a football game.
No.
He sits with his dad. I mean, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't attend some practices. He likes the football. Plus, he runs a soccer team over in Europe.
It's a lot.
Hands on. So why not try plugging somebody else in new just to see how it works? Someone that can tell everybody, hey, this is the way it's going to be.
Right.
You don't like it? The WWE's not going to take all of you. I can guarantee you.
Right.
Not at the money you're making here. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years because I do think AEW has been in a state of transition. You know, you look back to the way it launched in 2019 and what the company looked like, you know, just at the end of 2021. So just 2.5 years later, man, it looked a lot different. And I think it's just going to continue to evolve, but that's kind of necessary.
I think he's right. I think it's time for Tony Khan, the 2-time, 3-time, 5-time Booker of the Year, however many goddamn times. They just do that again? Did he just win Booker of the Year again? Something like that, Wrestling Observer. Remember I said earlier in the show in a different clip, if you're just watching the clips, that Tony Khan's got Meltzer in his back pocket? Well, there you go. Booker of the Year, Tony Khan. I don't see it. I don't see it. I think it is time for Tony Khan to step down. Look, I don't doubt that Tony's ADD enough to handle his football and his other football, the overseas football that's actually soccer, but they like to think that it's called football, makes them feel good because they don't have real football over there. So they got to play the soccer, which is the inferior sport. They like to claim that that's actually football, and that's just not the case. UK fans, I love you. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys. Where the fuck was I? Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt that Tony Khan's ADD ass could handle it all. He could, yeah, he just sits and doodles in his notebook and sketches up his fucking weeks and weeks of booking. The problem is there's no stories. He's making matches. And look, they're two different products. Some people like wrestling matches. AEW is better wrestling matches. AEW is better wrestlers. AEW is wrestling industry. It acknowledges there's a WWE in the world. It acknowledges New Japan and Ring of Honor and Impact, and it adds all that other shit in. And despite what you think you know from growing up fucking listening to Bruce Pritchard or Jim Cornette or something, there's nothing wrong with mentioning the other brands. You know, UFC, for example, they're not scared to say this guy came from Bellator or this guy came from whatever the fuck. You know what I mean? Pride and all of that shit, whatever they got, that people punch each other for real, whatever it is. The point is, people in real sports, people come from other sports. And it adds to their credibility. This guy's world traveled. He's from over here. He's from over there. Let's bring this guy in. It's a big deal that we got this Japanese guy. WWE, on the other hand, doesn't do that. They own everything. They script everything. They control everything. It's much more of a tight show as a You know, as much as people like to clown on AEW for being sports-like, you know, when they were trying to claim that, in a lot of ways they are. In that way, for example, is just one, you know, where it is not a scripted TV show. It is a fake sport. You know, they acknowledge other organizations and that sort of thing. So Tony Khan can handle it, but the problem is that Tony Khan's just not good. He's not good. He's not telling any stories. Look at, and it's clear as day, and this is why. The Bloodline. The Bloodline story is already being hailed as the best storyline told since the NWO. That could be hyperbole, because that is a fucking high bar. Look, man, I don't give a fuck who you are, what you say, how contrarian, and well, actually, it wasn't really that big of a deal. Look, the NWO, the Sting, especially the Sting era, not so much after Sting where it moved into Goldberg and then the Wolfpack and it got watered down. But that first, like from when Hall and Nash debuted, from when Scott Hall walked down those stairs and fucking all the way up to Sting coming down from the rafters, pointing his bat at Hulk Hogan after being cast out from the WCW locker room because they thought that he had turned his back on them and joined the NWO, but it was an imposter all along. And Sting tried to tell them, but they didn't believe him. They didn't trust him, and they told this story over a year, 2 years. Sting sat up in the rafters and just watched people get beat down and spray painted and just heat. Sorry. It's a family show, right? Apologies, I got carried away there. But that's what they were doing. And it was brilliant at the time. You know, people criticize the constant heat and burying all your baby faces and sacrificing the entire WCW locker room. And there's definitely an argument there, but that leading to Sting returning on behalf of WCW and defeating Hulk Hogan, taking the championship back, and that starts the cracks that crumble the NWO. There's infighting, they're not getting along. Maybe even the very next night on Nitro, they do what they did in like WWE. After Hogan lost to The Rock, they fucking Hall and Nash jumped him the next night on Raw, right? That would have been a brilliant cap to that. But they watered it down. They fucked it up. Sting didn't go get his tan that day. We all heard the stories, right? But that's the greatest storyline in wrestling history. And to say, and I'm long-winded. Just it's my show. Fuck off. That's the greatest story in wrestling history. And for people to put the Bloodline in the same category, to speak the Bloodline storyline in the same breath, is a testament to how good that storyline is, whether it is up there or not. I think, look, it's not up there with it. I'd like to see it finish out in history, you know, a little bit of dust settle on it and kind of see where it ranks in history. But God, yes, it's up there. It's one of the greatest storylines in the last 10, 15 years, at least 20 years. So it very well could be. Tony Khan has nothing like that. That is the stark contrast between what AEW is doing and what WWE is doing. And that mixed with Tony Khan just being a fucking whiny bitch-ass nerd, you know, doing his little bitchy drama tweets at Ariel Helwani and that sort of thing. People are losing. And then the CM Punk thing, it's AEW is losing its credibility over and over and over. They're there with the budget. They're there with the production value. Look, I've gone to 2 AEW shows. Their production is on. I've been to countless WWE shows. AEW's production value is right up there, right down to swapping out the ring aprons in between matches, like in commercials. You know, like the changing out the mat because it gets all sweaty and dirty and stuff. WWE always did that at least once per show during a commercial break. The little fucking ring monkeys come out and they're quit. It's amazing to watch them work. AEW the same. They got that whole fucking tech row, the big sweeping boom. I mean, I'm telling you, it's just as good. So they have everything they need to be the Pepsi to WWE's Coke. And in a lot of ways, they still are because they have the things WWE does not. They have the better wrestling product. I don't give a fuck who you are. You are lying. You are lying to yourself. If you can honestly say that there's better wrestling matches week to week in WWE, and I'm not saying, I can point to one match that was better than... No. Week to week, who is putting on better bell-to-bell in-ring wrestling? Which roster has better bell-to-bell in-ring wrestlers? AEW on both accounts, but why do you care? Why do you care? You care if you love to watch wrestling matches, but even that is not always enough. It's not enough to get me to tune into Rampage. I'm sure there's great wrestling matches that take place on Rampage. Don't watch it. I give Dynamite my time, and I love it, and I thoroughly enjoy it every single week. I very rarely see something and go, I didn't like that. But there's nothing that is compelling as the Bloodline storyline. And I think, just to kind of wrap all this right back up to Ric Flair's point, I think it's time that Tony brings in somebody else to book this shit. Now, I have always said, at the very least, I think it would have been smart for Tony Khan to set up a booking committee around him. Not to book by committee, because that's like people vote on it and it becomes this political clown show, on who's going to get the strap and who's going to go over, and people argue and they, play favorites and all that shit. Tony can still be the decision maker and the final boss even. But put some smart brains around you to sit around and come up with shit for you. I know a lot of the wrestlers are coming up with their own storylines, but I think a lot of wrestlers are not coming up with their own storylines. And I think that's why a lot of wrestlers are not being used to their full ability. That Tony doesn't always report injuries and that kind of thing. But like Miro is known to be cleared at this point. So either Tony has some sort of beef against Miro. I still think Miro probably slept with Tony Khan's girl, and so now Tony is being vindictive about it. But maybe Miro just doesn't have a creative brain cell on him and has no pitches for himself at this point. And it's kind of like, Tony should invest in a writer or two, not to write people's scripts, not to fucking write the fucking show or anything like that, just to be on hand, to go, to add to things, to add ideas, to expand ideas, to contribute what a creative writer could contribute, add that creative writer point of view. And then, God, I know he tried to get Cornette. I know he did. And plus, I know Cornette doesn't leave his house nowadays. And I know Cornette hates AEW and is not particularly going to work for a company where he's not going to have the control or the freedom to just speak his mind and bitch about everything. But God, what a brain he would be to have on your booking committee. Dutch Mantel, what a fucking brain to have on your booking committee. You mix that up. I would have Matt Hardy on my booking committee. I think he brings a different side of creative ass. He's a creative ass motherfucker. Think of all the different like cinematic matches that they did and that sort of thing. Like, have that brain on your fucking inner circle creative team. My God. So I think Tony really needs to start thinking about doing that at the very least, if not outright passing the book over to somebody else. He can step in and veto shit. If something's not looking right, he can step in and kind of take control a little bit. And look, maybe that's what this is. Because if you remember, back in the first year of AEW, or maybe year and a half, the Young Bucks had more creative freedom, and Cody Rhodes had more creative freedom. And Tony, there was a point, I think it was the Dark Order gimmick, that main event segment with the Dark Order beatdown on, I think, the Young Bucks, maybe? I don't know. That was a big, big flop, and that's where Tony was famously like, he said this in many interviews, I just stepped in and just said, all right, I'm in control now. I'm just going to fucking take charge of this shit from now on because I didn't like that rating. So maybe that's why. Maybe he had a little booking committee at that time with those EVPs, you know. Maybe that was kind of part of their role, and that's why they've lost more power lately and just kind of become people on the roster, you know. And then there's rumors that Kenny Omega might be highly courted by WWE, and honestly, the WWE is probably going to try to poach a lot of their talent. If Tony doesn't turn this ship around and do something drastic that really gets people back invested in the product, he's going to start losing all of his top talent to WWE. Unless he just outbids them. But why on earth would a Miro stay in AEW at this point? You know, we don't know if FTR has plans to come back. You know, Dax has spoken a lot of shit about Vince McMahon and just the clown show at WWE that they went through, the disrespect, the misuse, and that they said they weren't even really Triple H's boys. They don't even have that NXT tie to Triple H that people think they do. But they also bitched about Tony Khan, you know, and they could lose a lot of guys. MJF could be on his way out soon. You know, they poach Jade Cargill. They poach Britt Baker. They take Adam Cole back. They get fucking Miro back. They could just clean house. If they got the Elite, I would bet the Elite come as a package. I bet if Kenny Omega's contract comes up, we've heard the Young Bucks has probably got like a year left on theirs. Where one go, you know, if one stays in AEW, I would bet the other does. But if one goes to WWE, the other is going to be not far behind. And that could really contribute to AEW being very, you know, kicked right down. I made the comparison in a previous clip that Tony Khan's trying to be the Pepsi to a WWE's Coke. He's said it a million times. Excuse me. But right now, he's just kind of like the RC Cola to Coca-Cola. He's not the Faygo yet. He's not the store brand Great Value soda yet. You know, he's not TNA or NWA, with all due respect to them. They are nowhere near the major leagues that WWE are. Tony Khan at least is competing on budget, production, star power. You know, he has the ability to buy. He could go out and buy John Cena if he wants to. Easily, without even fucking flinching. Mercedes Moné, money, whatever the fuck, money. Jesus Christ. He has all of that in his back pocket, but if people don't want to watch the show, or people don't see the credibility in AEW, they don't like Tony Khan, he's an annoying fuck, and they know he's the boss and it's his company. So by proxy, everybody, Tony Khan was the laughing stock of the WWE locker room this past weekend at Elimination Chamber. Ariel Helwani said it on his show. We covered it in an earlier clip. He said when that tweet was sent out by Tony, the whole WWE locker room was talking about it, laughing about it. Oh my God, what a tool this was, to the point Michael Cole even called him out on commentary. You know, took a little shaded, veiled jab. Tony's got to turn this ship around, or he's going to lose that. He's going to lose that secondary status. They're going to be RC Cola and Great Value. I don't know if they'll get Great Value because they got the budget to print the nicer, fancier labels and the cool bottles and stuff. You know what I mean? They can put a nice coat of paint on the product, but the product's got to be good and it's got to be watchable. And look, man, I love a good goddamn wrestling match. So to me, the product's watchable. But I can't tell you that there's anything that's like got me hanging on the edge of my seat. There's no, God, I can't wait to see what happens next. That just doesn't exist in AEW. And Tony, for as much as Meltzer likes to call him the Booker of the Year, I just don't see it, especially up against the Bloodline angle, which really shines a light on how weak the storytelling is in AEW right now.
Let me tell you something, brother. You can check out full episodes each and every Sunday right here on this channel, dude. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to take your vitamins and say your prayers, brother.